Welcome back to Left Anchor. I'm Alexi the Greek.
I'm Ryan Cooper. So today it's just the two of us once again. Two just guys being dudes. We'll talk about it in a minute, but we're just coming down from the high here in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania of a Donald Trump rally, which I did not even realize was happening until we were driving to Target. And
that wasn't your personal invitation? You didn't say, hey, Donald, come hang out in my hometown?
No, and I didn't get an invitation from the campaign either, the bastards.
Rude.
Yeah, we didn't know until there were cops everywhere and traffic was real bad. But yeah, before we get to that, I guess we should mention, as usual, that this podcast is sponsored by the American Prospect Magazine. If you head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/leftanchor and sign up at $10 a month, you can get a free digital subscription to the magazine, plus our bonus episodes, which is typically every other one. $5 a month will just get you the bonus and our undying gratitude. And otherwise, you can rate, review, or send to your friends. And we're your social media network of choice. I don't recommend Twitter. Elon throttles link posts that have any outgoing link. But, Threads, Blue Sky, put carrier pigeons, all good.
Any means of communication you have at your disposal.
Yeah.
Invisible ink letters.
Yeah, that's right. Smoke signals, Morse code, a couple of Dixie cups with string, sent to the neighbor kids. But anyway, yeah. I guess we can get to it.
So Trump, he's still campaigning, apparently. It took him the allure of Wilkes-Barre to go on the trail again. Because he had been basically doing hardly anything, letting J.D. Vance go on the trail like in his stead, right?
Yeah, he was doing like one event a week, which is not very many for a presidential campaign. I mean, typically, I think you're talking at least 3, sometimes more. It's funny. I saw the ad for the email announcement that we're going to Enchanting Wilkes-Barre. And by the way, I just want to clarify, this is not in Wilkes-Barre proper. This is in Wilkes-Barre Township, which I'm not sure exactly what that, why that is a separate city. I'm sure there's some stupid history there, but that's where all the businesses are at. And they have an arena there. Yeah. You go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Target. And I spent a lot of time in that place, which sucks because it's very Strody, lots of traffic. Yet, that's, if you want to go to Best Buy or Lowe's, that's where you got to go.
And besides the fact that it's in Pennsylvania, what's the demographic and population over there like? Why do you think he chose that spot?
Yeah, I think, this would be my first comment, which is that it is crazy that any presidential campaign would have events in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I mean, I guess NEPA is sort of a decent sized population center, the Northeast Pennsylvania, that is NEPA. That's the Scranton, Wilkes-Barre metropolitan area. It's got about 500,000 people in it. So not nobody, but it's not Pittsburgh. It's not Philadelphia by a mile. And yet this is not I think Trump at least has had 2, probably more than that, rallies since this campaign started. And in 2020, there are several. Joe Biden's been there. Of course, Joe Biden, Scranton is where he sort of grew up. So that makes a little more sense.
Old stomping grounds, yeah.
But without the Electoral College is my point that this place would not get any attention from presidential campaigns. And frankly, that is how it should be. This is a backwater, and you look at like the map of campaign events. It's like all of California gets like 3, all of New York gets 1, all of Texas gets like 3 or 4, and out of hundreds. And that's because those votes don't matter. If you vote in Texas, fuck you. Your vote is worthless. But here in Pennsylvania, probably the most important swing state, our votes count 10 times as much as anybody else's. And that's bullshit. It's bullshit not only because it's egregiously unfair. You have the whole election decided in a country of 330 million people by like 400,000 people in like 5 states.
Right.
But also the fact that all of that 330 million people's worth of political pressure gets dumped on my head and your head.
Sure. And not only that, but the temperature taken of the voters in Pennsylvania dictate the putative campaign promises that translate potentially into the policies of whoever wins, right? So it's like, setting the course for the future based on what the swing voters may or may not think of fracking.
Yeah. No, Harris has gotten in a bit of trouble for previously being against fracking or critical of fracking. And I think she's basically jettisoned that promise, which, I don't love, but I don't blame her either.
Well, here's the thing though, right? Because I don't know, we planned to talk about this, but we saw recent polling on Pennsylvania specifically in like if Harris threw support behind an arms embargo on Israel, which because of the way that the Biden administration, let alone Netanyahu, has totally taken the term ceasefire to not mean ceasefire at all, right? Arms embargo is the new kind of demand from Palestinian rights groups and other groups that want the genocide to end. And the polling in Pennsylvania shows that independent, i.e. swing voters in Pennsylvania, would be some massive percentage. Like I forget if it was broken down by men and women or how it was done, but it was like 30 or 50% more likely to vote for her if she supported that policy. And there was like this 0% less likely to vote for her if she supported that. So it was like no downside risk, all positive. And so one wonders, and this goes back to kind of discussions we've had about popularism. It tends, the people that tend to support that kind of thing seem to be selective usually in the kind of policies they focus on. So we'll see if that kind of swing voter policy actually gets any attention.
Yeah, I'm reminded of when Matt Iglesias, popularist par excellence, said that we should have Matt Damon run for office precisely because he said some years ago that he only recently stopped saying like homophobic slurs. This was the argument for him. And it's just, this is the temptation in punditry to just talk your book is overwhelming. I've probably done it many times. I'm sure I've done it many times. You want to say, oh, it's the most popular thing. But when you can look at polling like that, especially on a critical issue, it's just undeniable. And I do think that there are some initial signs, as we've said, that, Harris is not going to go hardcore Zionist by not picking Shapiro, by picking some advisors. I forget his name, but there's one guy who's prominent in the Clinton and Obama administrations who's notably sympathetic to Palestinians. But relative to the Biden team, at least. That's right. We hear, let's put it this way, as a kind of proxy, she's pissing off the right people. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Jonathan Chait and Matt Iglesias are furious. Yeah. Maybe we can do a couple of brief comments on the rally itself. I watched some highlights. I could not make it in, alas. I was most pissed off because, when I go to Target, there's a level 2 charger there that Target will let you use for free for an hour. So I always go plug in to get, 75 cents worth of free electricity. And for your car, if people don't know, you've got a lovely new electric vehicle. Yeah, exactly. A little Hyundai Kona, not a super fancy Rivian or whatever. But, that's like 30 miles of range. And right now, the only way to charge it at home is with an extension cord strung out the basement window. And so that takes like 80 hours to charge it up all the way. And it does work if you just basically leave it plugged in all the time. But, it's nice to just top off. Anyway, the cops had blocked the back way that I take in there, which is obnoxious. But anyway, so Trump said one thing was that tariffs are, quote, a tax on a foreign country. It doesn't affect our country. And famously, attacks on foreign countries don't affect our country, famously. Yeah. A tax on goods that they are sending into our country don't affect our country. and this should be, discussed in the context of his proposal, supposedly. I mean, I doubt he would actually be able to do this, but to get rid of the income tax entirely. Zero it out and compensate with a tariff on everything which if you do the math would be a tariff of like 130, 140%, something like that. So you would simultaneously have a massive price increase on basically everything. Almost nothing is produced wholly within the country. There's always like parts that are imported, or it's shipped to Canada or Mexico for like processing or something like that. Very little stuff is produced 100% domestically. And so this would be a hugely inflationary thing to do, and would increase the price of food by a lot. Which is
not cheap right now. I'm going to tell you. I was in Greece for over a year, and I came back and had a little sticker shock. Gotta say.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. And at the same time, just a massive transfer of income upward, because who pays most of the income tax? It's rich people, because they make most of the money. And so this would be, basically a transfer of revenue collection from the rich to the middle class and the working class and the poor, the people who buy rather than save. And I think it's fair to say this would be the biggest combination of tax cuts for the rich and tax increases for everyone else in American history by a lot.
Yeah.
I do think, like, how can people believe this shit? It's like a tariff on, like, you just think, okay, well, here, I bought a Hyundai Kona electric vehicle. It was imported from Korea. So it'd be 140% more expensive if that had been the regime.
But you see, Ryan, to make America great again, we just cut ourselves off from the entire world. And maybe this is a subversive way to take down capitalism and just like not have any integrated supply chains or systems where multinational corporations supply the goods that we consume. We just have to start from scratch in this country and give ourselves everything from our own resources. And it's like, in a kind of way, it's the most kind of ridiculous utopian picture that you could possibly come up with to try to justify that approach, right?
Yeah, and I mean, ironically, the Biden administration is actually attempting to do a lot of something like this, to make a somewhat more autarchical economy where more manufacturing takes place in places like Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. There's a giant artillery factory that was just restarted to make shells for Ukraine in Scranton. There's all these graybeards who have been retired and they're out there, with the hitting things with hammers. But they're trying to do it in a more sensible way where it's not just instantly cut yourself off from everyone. It's like it takes time to
proper industrial policy where you have planning and actually thoughtfulness about what's needed and where the resources need to be and how to fund it and all that. Not just the invisible hand will incentivize through its chaos.
Few other little golden notes. Trump sounded better than he has recently, but he was not on his A game. He was really boring for a lot of it. But at one point,
mad,
right? He said that he talked about Kamala Harris being on the cover of Time magazine, and he said that I'm much better looking than Kamala. And
everything with Trump is like projection. It's so funny.
It's just the level of pettiness. It's like, dude, you are a fat 78-year-old man. Kamala's not a supermodel, but like she's an attractive woman.
And that's why he says it, right? Like every time he says something like that, it is the most patently obvious way to address his own insecurity by pretending he has cosmic power to make it not so through stating otherwise. Like it's just like when he says, "I am the most humble and I am the least racist and least sexist. I have the biggest crowds."
That's right.
She's not the pretty one. I'm the pretty one. That's his approach to like truth. He's going to like look at reality and say, I don't like what I'm seeing. Actually, I'll change it through my words.
Yeah. He said, global warming will, quote, give you slightly more beachfront property if it happens. This is something he said several times. It's one of those things that just like Trump, certain things stick in his head. Like apparently this is where build the wall came from. Like his advisors were trying to get him to focus on immigration policy. And like, here was a slogan that he just sort of latched onto and just said it a billion times. But, it's like, I don't even know how you come up with that. It's like, okay, the sea's going to come up and it's going to flood all the beaches. and then there won't be beaches there anymore. They'll be moved inland, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's sort of like that famous H-Bomber guy clip from Ben Shapiro talking about, oh, well, if the sea levels rise, what do you think? All the people who live in those unlikely areas, where won't they just sell their homes and move?
It's going to be so easy to sell that property. So many people will want to buy it.
So let's say, for the sake of argument, that all of the water levels around the world rise by let's say 5 feet over the next 100 years, say 10 feet by the next 100 years, and it puts all the low-lying areas on the coast underwater, right? Which, let's say all of that happens. You think that people aren't going to just sell their homes and move?
Just one small problem. Sell their houses to who, Ben? Fucking Aquaman!
Anyway, last thing to transfer into a general discussion of the Trump campaign. He forgot he was in Pennsylvania. He said, am I right? North Carolina? Yeah, which I guess he was there a while ago. And, that it's just indicative of his whole declining brain. But yeah, this going into the Trump campaign in general, it just seems like they're totally at a loss of what to do. They got this guy who's 78 years old. His brain is cooked, and, he just can't
stop. Moody.
Yeah.
He's also moody. I feel like he's just so mad that they spent $100 million campaigning against Biden, and he was so confident in going against Biden. And then he had his convention, and then the rug was pulled out from under him because, his convention's over. They spent all this money, and now he has to come up with a new plan to go against a competent opponent. And he's just so mad about it that he's in he's a toddler. So he's in toddler mode where he's just not, he's still throwing a tantrum. He's not moving on to actually do the work he needs to do to try to win, because his emotions rule him,
I wonder if actually, there was some calculation on Biden's part or the people around him to say okay, maybe I need to drop out, but let's not do it until after the Republican convention. And they've made this too old thing the centerpiece of their entire campaign. Because once, not only have they wasted all this money and messaging on Biden, now the script is completely flipped around, because now he's the oldest candidate ever by a huge margin. And he's almost 20 years older than Kamala. And it may, it's telling that the New York Times is not running front page headlines every single day of the week, wondering if Trump is too old to run and if he should drop out. But nevertheless, I think it's now a major theme in the campaign, because he's constantly making these flubs. He had the Twitter Spaces event with Elon Musk where he sounded like Sylvester the cat. And I don't know did you listen to some of that?
No.
He was just lisping his word. He sounded like he was missing his teeth or something like that. Like he'd taken his dentures out.
She looked like the most beautiful actress ever to live. It was a drawing. She looked very much like our great first lady, Melania. Yeah. She didn't look like Camilla, but of course she's a beautiful woman, so we'll leave it at that.
It was
look, most of us have never found him charming. In fact, find him quite gross and idiotic and any number of adjectives. But if you look at the rally or any number of interactions between him and crowds, his own fans don't seem super thrilled by him lately, so he doesn't even, whatever charm he had in a kind of circus ringleader way isn't even really working anymore with the same people.
Yep. Folks around here, I didn't live here in 2020 or 2016, but they said that there's way fewer Trump signs than there were at this point in the campaign. In those years, especially 2016, at 2016 rallies, you go and look at them, Trump's rambling like crazy as usual, but it had a sort of a positive energy to it and a sort of message. We're going to kick out the illegals. Everyone's going to have a good paying manufacturing job. We're going to fix this place up, kick the bums out of Washington. It was, it was a positive, somewhat optimistic.
People were having fun at his rallies, and he was cracking jokes. I think, like any highly insecure person, when he's confident, when he feels like he's going to win, he can be more relaxed, and he is more light and funny and less nasty, actually. I think his nastier moments, I don't think play well, even though we might cynically think that they do. I don't think they do. I think when you talk to the people that enjoy voting for him rather than the whole your nosers who are doing it for their own self-interest or whatever, right? They think he's fun. They want to hang out with him. It's that kind of cliche thing, right? That he knows how to really get the libs, but when he's in his like sour kind of dour mode where he's playing the victim, that's not giving them the affective result they want. You know, they don't get to enjoy that in the same way that they used to enjoy his performances.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you can see that at the rally, because there are just like long stretches where he's just complaining about really obscure stuff and the audience is just dead silent. You know, they just didn't have that same sort of the charismatic connection between the speaker and
that's it.
the audience that you noticed in previous rallies. People were like, you know, just sort of looking around, you know, like, man, this isn't what I was expecting. The other thing about the campaign, you know, you mentioned J.D. Vance, and I think that has really backfired on them terribly. His approval ratings are quite weak. And when you look at, you know, the breakdown, I was just recently looking at some crosstabs. Who knows if they're accurate or not, but he's like underwater on every major demographic group. He's underwater with men. He's underwater with men more than women. 12 points versus 8 points. Not sure what's going on there, but there's just this gold mine of crazy shit that he's said on podcasts over the last like 4 or 5 years.
Did you see that when Trump brought up, or was, I don't know if he brought it up or if it was brought up to him, the accusation that his ticket is weird, he threw Vance under the bus. He's like, no, not me. And they're not talking about me. They're talking about Vance. Right.
The guy that I picked to replace me if I croak. Also, I'm 78 years old and visibly declining. And I think another factor with why the weird thing and why they're so wrong-footed by it is by how much of right-wing discourse happens on Twitter now, which is every day becoming more and more like Gab or Stormfront, you know, just a right-wing, saturated with right-wing voices. But the way that Elon Musk has rejiggered the algorithm and the way that he is ultimately banned left-wing critics of him and changed the moderation so that if you have a post with cisgender in it, it's marked as a slur. Whereas, you know, he's restored all these accounts for Milo Yiannopoulos and Trump. And there was that guy, Dom Luker, right, who posted an image of CSAM, like one of the most notorious pieces of CSAM in history. You know, infamous among people who do like content moderation. And Musk.
And what is that acronym for people that don't know?
Child sexual abuse material. And, you know, Elon personally posted about restoring this guy's account. But so the way that plus the algorithm changes, the incentive it's created is for whenever something happens, all the right wingers scramble to say the most deranged shit you could possibly think of, because that's what gets you attention on Twitter now, Vichy Twitter. And I think that, you know, every time there's just this little boomlet of totally insane stuff. Like when Kamala was ribbing Tim Walz about white people spicy, and, you know, they're just making jokes. I mean, this is classic Minnesota. If you know people from Minnesota, they talk about this kind of shit all the time. It's not even true 99% of the time, but it's just like a funny little thing to joke about. And these people are coming unglued. They were like looking up his old hot dish recipes, which had some like green chilies in it, you know.
And Ben Shapiro basically in a tweet, I saw someone point out that he was so mad by it, he accidentally admitted to settler colonialism, talking about like white people and spices.
Yeah, the Europeans committed, you know, wars and colonialism for 500 years so that they could get control of the spice trade, which is, I mean, that's kind of true. But aside from it being a joke, green chilies are not that spicy. You know, let's be honest. They're like a half a step above a bell pepper, you know. But you know, Tim Walz is doing whiteface. He's throwing white people under the bus. Man, that's fucking weird, dude. That is a weird thing to say. That's the end of the preview, folks. If you want to hear the whole episode, you can go to patreon.com/leftanchor. Thanks for listening.